What's up, traders? Going 2 for 2 today. Let's get to it. Here, traders, something you can do for me. It's nice and appreciative, and it's free for you to do. Hit that like button. I always appreciate that support. Let's jump right into these trades. We are going to be, as always, doing these on 2x speed. So if you want to slow it down and watch it normal speed, feel free to go find the live trades from this morning. Have them timestamped as always, as you can see right here. That's what I'm watching to go ahead and do these recaps. You can see us watching BEKE. This was not one of the better trades I've taken, but you can see it's already 10:33 in the morning. We've already went an hour and 3 minutes, and there just has not been anything. So you see, we'll go back a little bit. You'll see it finally makes a little pop. This was right off the hourly chart, the 60-minute chart, this little level that we found here at 2137. We found a little bit of a jiggle after it looked like it made a little pop through 21. And that was just us risking basically off that area. Was more than willing to add to this if it wanted to go. We did have a nice little extension away from this previous resistance, as well as the 9 was down here, VWAP all the way down here. So really, and you can tell it's a little bit of a grinder because look at that 9 just jump up. Every new candle, that 9 gets closer and closer to the price, which is not what we want. So it does come up and test that area. It does eventually actually go through the $0.50, but with no real pullback. So I was perfectly okay just kind of holding on to this thing, and we eventually end up adding to this thing on the backside with risking the high of day. So right there, you can see this little high of day fake out. You can see it go through. It actually does, I think, go through 50 on this little breakout. Fake out, breakout. There it goes. And so what I'm thinking here is we didn't really have a pullback. I mean, you can see that really wasn't anything. So if this wanted to go up through 50, right there it goes. We were more than willing to add to this, but it gets shoved right back down. And so with that, we decided to just kind of let it go and see what it did. And if it just wanted to work, it just works. But as you can see, it does come down, tests that same area. I want to say it was 2112. It kept testing that, and there was somebody just buying up the shares. And you can see it just kind of stopped there again. And it finally broke. So at this point, I'm like, okay, more than happy to see if this wants to break through 21. And if it comes back up, we'll just go ahead and jump out. If it does try to get through 21 and fails, but it does not try to get through 21 and it goes back up. So right here, you're going to see it kind of pop up here, almost like somebody just covering some shorts, and we get that pop. And I'm basically saying, okay, it's still struggling. People are still selling into this. We're going to go ahead and add, looking for this to come right back down and finally give us that 21 break. And if not, we're going to stop out at high of day. So you see us put the stop in. We're actually going to end up changing this order to be the full position. And I think we raised it to 91, just looking for it to come down and get that little bit of a flush through 21. And eventually, you can see it does break through 21. Didn't quite hit us the first time around. It's kind of struggling. But since there was really nobody buying it up and it already failed that initial push back up here, I mean, even on that candle itself, it ended up turning red. I felt pretty confident that we were going to get that move a little bit lower. And as you can see, we do end up getting that fill right there. So it ended up being what I started off really small as far as position size, because I knew I was FOMOing into the trade just because I was just looking to trade. I found something to trade and I traded it. But I started off really small, but we ended up adding some size when we realized that we were possibly on the backside. And we had our risk there at high of day. And if it would have went to high of day, it would have been a small cut. It would have been less than what we ended up making. And I was pretty happy with it. And then we turn around. As you can see, the trade ends here. And we get right into our second trade, which ends up being Clove. You can see us go right to the chart. Nice little extension. It was kind of volume out of nowhere. I mean, there was some volume there throughout the day, but then this candle, there was a pretty good chunk of volume, but it wasn't completely out of nowhere, right? And that's why I was okay jumping right into this, because I knew that we always look for those $0.50 areas, and then we always look for that 70 or 20. So if it's through a whole dollar, we look for 20. If it's through a $0.50, we look for 70, because that's usually where people will start to sell. They want the breakthrough those key areas, and then they look to sell as far away from those as possible. And that 20 and 70 area seem to be the good spots. So we end up taking our starter there, looking to see if it wanted to continue up a little bit higher. And as you can see, it ended up being a good cover there on BEKE as it decided to go back up. It actually did end up going high of day. We actually pretty much hit the bottom with that cover. So I was pretty happy about that. And then CLOV, you can see it just kind of starts to come down, gives us that move down into the 50s, and then we end up taking it once we realize it didn't want to give us that flush. And this actually, I believe if we keep it here, you'll see that it ends up popping back up towards 70, towards high of day again. So the two things, right? I always talk about this. What our edge is the intense move into the pullback. When that pullback finally happens, if it's really fast like this, or if it's a little bit slower in the case of BEKE, but once you finally get that pullback, that's the high probability move. That's what we're looking for. Whatever happens after that doesn't really matter, right? Because that's not what we're after. In the case of, let's go to, in the case of Clove, you can see it ended up going back to high of day, right? This is live now. You can see it ended up going back to high of day, did eventually come back down and test that same area, but it ended up going back up again. And in the case of BEKE, we hit the bottom there and it ended up going back to high of day, right? So that's why the thing that we're looking for is the big move up into the pullback. What happens after that? Everyone's always like, well, why didn't you just take a partial? Because some days you'll see where we take our position off and this thing goes all the way back to low a day. But for every, I always say it, for every trade you can show me that did that, I can show you a trade that does this, where it ends up going higher. And sometimes it'll end up just continuing to a higher and higher. So it's one of those things where you can show me something and I can show you 2 more times where it didn't do that, right? It's all a matter of what you're looking at. It's a bias that you might form, and you really need to learn to get rid of that, because that's what can actually hurt you in the end, is when you start to form these biases. So that's all I really have for you. We can always dive more into that. Feel free to find me in Discord, find me on Twitter. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I always appreciate that support. If you do have any questions or comments, again, find me Discord, find me Twitter. You can leave them down in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Peace.